It's about 6:30 in the morning. Just came down the boat, get the hot water turned on, get everything ready to go. Looks like so far this is going to be the warmest weekend of the year, so really looking forward to it. We got a few summer boat tweaks we want to discuss. Hopefully it'll be a nice weekend, and about 7-8 hours from now, we should be hitting the water.
One innovation I'd like to speak about is something to do with this fridge. Now, this is a Norcold fridge, and we've all heard, you know, kind of a few of the jokes around Norcold, like never cold or not cold or that sort of thing. But I want to sort of scale that back a little bit and saying I don't think these fridges are actually all that bad. They're actually a very efficient fridge. I think they use some of the technology from Angel fridges, which are some of the most efficient fridges made. The thing that I think is the problem with these fridges is not necessarily the fridges themselves, but the way they've been installed and the implementation of their use. And so the summer portion of this innovation is what you can do to actually make it work better, other than using this dial and turning it up to 5 and still it not being cold enough even when it gets really, really hot. So let's have a look. So the fridge faces this way, and it goes back into this cavity in behind here, right? And it is zero clearance, so there is no clearance around the outside, other than there's a little bit of venting at the top and the bottom. But otherwise, the heat exchanging qualities of the fridge, and let's face it, all a fridge is really meant to do, or air conditioning or any of these type of systems, is it absorbs the heat from one place and exhausts it to another place. Well, it's absorbing your heat from the inside of your fridge freezer area, and it's exhausting it into this cavity. And then basically the only area this for this heat to escape is this venting up here, and it's only by convection and the rising of hot air. When we get to our hottest days of the year, we're up into the, you know, in Canada up into the 30s, or in the US we're up into the, you know, almost 100 degrees or higher. We know how this area gets. It is hot. It's hot where it's drawing the air in along the vents on the front, and it's even hotter coming out. Eventually, the air in this column in behind the fridge where it has to get rid of the heat, the whole thing becomes saturated with heat. And then that's when your temperatures go up. The frozen goods inside the fridge start to melt and start to warm up. Your milk goes bad, and we kind of know how it goes from there. So when you look at it in that respect, it kind of makes the solution quite obvious. We need to get the heat from in behind here and need to get it outside the boat. And, you know, if you can get, you know, maybe some cooler air inside the boat, that helps a little bit too. But the real problem is the heat in behind this column. To illustrate the final part of the solution, we're going to have to just go outside, up the stairways, and just a little bit to the right here on the bulkhead on the outside of the aft deck, just behind this fridge. Come on, let's have a look. I'll have to clear away a few ropes here. We're just on the outside of the bulkhead, so the fridge is kind of in behind this bulkhead, kind of behind the door right here, that the sliding door that opens and closes. So the specific thing I want to look at is just right down here. Okay, so that is the vent right there. So right on the back bulkhead. So basically what I've done is that vent on the back of the bulkhead there, it's just one of those 3-inch computer fans from like an old desktop computer. Well, it's a new fan, but the same type of the older desktop computers used to use. And they're very low power, low amperage, and I have a manual switch to turn it on. And while that could be done probably thermostatically, sometimes simple is easier, right? And so when it is hot out, you just click that on, and then that pulls the air from the column in behind the fridge where the fridge is, you know, exchanging its heat to, and then it pumps it onto the deck here. Now that does two things. It pulls that extra hot air out of there, and then to displace it, it pulls the air in those front vents on the fridge to displace that. Furthermore, it will help to pull the air into the boat from outside or from the windows and cool the overall inside of the boat a little bit, because that's what really needs to be done, is the air movement through that column of air. Finally, the place where this is turned on and can be fully utilized, just right up here, I've got a little bit of switch, kind of hard to see, but if I click it, not sure if you can hear that or not, but if it gets really hot, especially in the midst of summer, and you know, we notice the fridge isn't quite doing as good a job as we want it to do, we just turn on that switch and uses hardly any power. Not that that matters anyway with the solar, but it makes the fridge work, I don't know, immeasurably better. So we don't have any of that problem, even in the hottest weather once I installed that. So highly recommended, definitely on a 3587 or a 4087. This is the exact application. Probably easiest to remove the fridge to actually install that. And basically you just drill a hole, put a screen on there, mount a fan, and put a vent on the outside, and you're pretty well done. So yeah, there's some power back there. You can just use the power there, put a switch in, and you're pretty well all set. Another summertime boating tweak I'd like to talk about is the wet bar, more specifically the ice maker. Now we all know the ice maker, it can be, you know, a real hog on power, but you know, maybe you don't have an issue with power, maybe you're at the dock, maybe there's a lot of things that it's not necessarily about the power in itself. However, the one thing that happens with this, which is very similar to another boating tweak in this video, being a refrigeration system, it basically absorbs the cold from the water and the ice making compartment and exhausts it outside the ice making compartment. So in this case with the wet bar, it pulls the air in through the bottom, there's a fan, and there's a heat exchanger that it releases that hot air, and the issue is, especially when it gets hot, it has nowhere to go. So the entire cabinet here becomes filled with warm or even hot air. And once that happens, even if you had enough power normally to run the ice maker, the trouble is the hotter it gets in there, the harder it has to work, and eventually it just doesn't turn off and it just keeps on compressing refrigerant, trying to remove that heat, and gets the entire compartment warm. So much so that if you press that tap up on the wet bar here, hot water comes out. And moreover, where we store our refreshments over here, you end up with hot toddies and you didn't really intend to have them. Anyway, let's look at what I did to solve that problem. As similar to one of our other innovations here, you can see the vent on the back of the wet bar here. So in behind this vent, we have a 3-inch computer fan. We have it plugged in just with a 12-volt AC adapter into the same power supply that the ice maker's plugged into. And then we just basically turn that on and it can exhaust that hot air that accumulates inside this whole wet bar cabinet. And the hot air is blown out, and then the cool air, or relatively cool air, can sneak in past the cabinet doors and then also the vent where the fan sort of pulls it in. Without this, it just bottles up all that hot air. And as mentioned, if a refrigeration unit is working in a hot condition, it just has to work harder and harder, using more electricity, shortening the life of the device, and in extreme conditions, not working properly at all. Okay, we're on the flybridge, and you know, as with any area, some summer innovation can be done here as well. And what we're looking at is our typical cruising configuration, which, you know, this is pretty good. We got the nice L-shaped seating, we got a seat over here on the side, and we have the helm seat. But the issue is you know, if you really want to use this as an area to actually enjoy the anchorages and relax in, it needs a bit of modification. This is what we would refer to as our at anchor flybridge setup. So I have made this table here, and let's go have a little look at it. If you just want this table to be a little bit on the smaller side, you can have it like this. And then if you need it to be a little bit bigger, it just flips over like this. And when we're not using it, we just store it in behind the Angel fridge, just in the box here behind me on the flybridge. made a little protective cover for it with the, you know, boat name on there sort of thing. And we can just slide in here when we're not in use, and then it just, you know, keeps the finish a little bit protected. And yeah, so certainly does make a really nice area to be able to sit here and either have dinner or some snacks at happy hour or that sort of thing. And just an overall nice place to lounge. If you have a helm configuration that's somewhat like this, works really well on this boat. But if you have a helm configuration where you can pull the seat off and then just you get a seat base, make a little tabletop, makes for a really nice little spot.
The next summertime innovation I'd like to show are the screen gates I made for accessing the side deck and the access to the back. While these were primarily made for loose items and the dog, they also sometimes keep out little critters too.
Okay, so these screens, when we want to close off the openings, so yeah, we have a few snaps on the bottom that we do up here. And then this cable, it was already set up to block off the area. But mainly, what we kind of set these up for was really to, you know, just to make sure that if the dog is walking around, especially when we're in transit, that we can sort of block it off. And, you know, and then that sort of blocks off the whole area here. You can still see through it, which is kind of nice, but it just sort of keeps everything in. And yeah, with being able to block this off, it really does help with just, you know, of course with the dog, we you know, if you don't notice that right away, you're not going to get her back. And it does block things from like something like shoes or any loose things. And we have lost stuff just out the back, you know, if it's been a little bit windy and, you know, stuff's kind of close, boat movement, that sort of thing. So yeah, you might save yourself from losing some equipment and that sort of thing. And otherwise, when you don't need it, you just leave it open. And but yeah, a really good little thing to do.
When mounting snaps to fiberglass, I highly recommend using the 3M stick-on snaps. There's no drilling through the fiberglass, so there's no chance of leak or causing a delamination in your decks.
One other item I'd like to talk about, and you know, kind of comes within summertime. You know, you're having a lot of beverages on the boat, whether it be mixes or could be beer or whichever, but you end up with a lot of empties is the short of it. And I guess that kind of goes for all times of the year, but especially in summer, because you probably drink a little bit more stuff in the summer. At least you're on the boat a lot more in the summer. So anyway, I want to just talk about this innovation for what we do with the empties after we crush them. So this area here, where we stored this bag right in this area, it's an area that's otherwise unusable for pretty well anything else. And you know, due to its irregular shape and just doesn't have a lot of value. So that's where this bag comes in. Okay, so this bag, nothing too special. I'll just empty out the empties that we have in here for now. So the bottom is, I made this with the sewing machine, pretty basic, just, you know, made kind of a template on that shape that we wanted, just out of a piece of old tarp or plastic or whatever, and cut out the shapes. And then I put a little bit of mesh in the bottom. Now we rinse all our cans, so, you know, it gets rid of any residue that might attract pests like wasps or anything like that. And then I just sewed on these Velcro loops. Now you could probably do this with any sewing machine. It does help if you have an industrial walking foot machine, but in any case, simple little bag like this, it can actually hold a whole lot more than you think it might. I put a little bit of wire up in the top here to keep it formed nicely, and otherwise it just fits that spot perfectly. It's just another one of those simple innovations that just makes boating just a little bit easier. And, you know, gives you somewhere else to store stuff than inside the boat or on deck or that sort of thing, and uses a spot that otherwise goes unused. A Last summer innovation that I want to show is kind of something that we've actually touched on before, but under the circumstance last time, we couldn't actually fully illustrate it. So as a sort of a bonus to summer innovations on your boat, I want to actually illustrate this one, and this one is the sunshade. Let's put it up and we can show you how it works. Or this is the awning strip right here that we just slide it in. At any given point, we can just slide it in there and move it around. And we can have it as a combination between that and the back too. Okay, you want to grab that end? There we go. So this material that this is made of is referred to, I think, as Preface, and it's just a PVC mesh. Okay, do you want to walk this out to alongside the boat, and I'll go ahead and put this in. We just have it along this side right now, but we can sort of bend it back here and then shape it right around so it goes in the awning strip around the back and on the side, or whatever position in between, wherever the sun's at, where you want to block it. And you know, as much as we all like the sun, at a certain point, it sometimes can become just a little too much, whether you've had a little too much sun that day, or it's a little late in the day and you're all sunned out, or just too hot. It certainly does help sometimes. Anyway, we hope you really enjoyed these different summertime innovations, and perhaps there's a little bit of time before your summer vacations on your boat that you might be able to make some use of some of these ideas for your application, and hopefully it'll make your boating life just a little more enjoyable. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. See you later.